Assalamu alaikum and good evening, Gunjun online viewers. We welcome all of you to what we hope is probably the first in a series of roundtable discussions on general about governance in the Gambia. I'm your host, DF Mani. On the panel today, I have Honorable Touma Njie. We have Louis Sambou. We have Dr. Sulayman Njie and Professor Lamine Conteh. If I may, panelists, could you introduce yourselves to our viewers, please? And we will start with Honorable Touma Njie. Hello, can you hear me?
It's breaking. It's breaking.
Yes, I can hear you, I think.
Honorable, can you hear me?
It's breaking. I couldn't hear the introduction.
You didn't?
No.
Dr. Conteh, could you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Dr. Njie, could you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I can hear you very well now.
Okay. I was just saying, Honorable, if you can just introduce yourselves to our viewers, please. I think we're having problems. What we could do, Honorable, maybe you could just do voice. Maybe if you just cancel video and just do audio instead. Can you hear us now? Hello?
Still not good.
Even with the video off?
Yeah, even with the video. It's cracky. Let me just try if I can hear you from my phone.
Oh, have you got your phone on as well? If you got your phone on, it will just
yeah, I can hear you from the phone.
Oh, that's the problem. You have to
yeah.
You have to close it on the phone.
It's cracky. Let me just.
Perhaps moving forward, this is something the Parliament needs to work on with our technology, internet, and stuff, right?
Yeah, budgetary discipline. Hello, can you hear us?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, if you can only have it on one device, otherwise you get echo. Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I can.
Is it echoing?
It cracks at times, but I can hear. I just heard what you said, so I think
okay,
we can
all right.
go ahead.
Just go ahead. If you can just introduce yourself, please.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me, Mr. Mane. My name is Fatoumata Njie. I'm commonly known as Touma. I'm the National Assembly member representing Banjul South at the National Assembly and the 5th Legislature from 2017 going on to 2022. And I really appreciate the invitation to discuss budget and fiscal discipline in the country. And I appreciate the invitation and hope it will be a fruitful discussion that will help the Gambian populace, both home and abroad, to understand the importance of the budget in the country and to help us come up with the budget that would suit the Gambia that we have today and to move us to address the issues on the ground and to ensure that funds are directed into priority areas. I thank you very much for having me this evening. Thank you. And I also thank my co-panelists and hope it will be a fruitful discussion where we can share ideas that can move this country forward.
All right, thank you so much, Mrs. Honorable Touma Njie. Palui, you are no stranger here. Neither is Dr. Njie, and neither is the Professor Conteh. And obviously, due to some technical difficulties, if you guys do not mind, you can just do a one sentence introduction each, please. We'll start with Palui, please.
I can't hear you, Palui.
You can hear me or you can hear Palui?
Palui.
Thank you very much, Dave, for having me on your platform. Like you said, I am no stranger to this platform, so I think I just save the introduction just for reasons of time.
Okay.
I just
Dr. Njie?
Yeah, for me, I just need to make a disclaimer because I work for the United States Government Accountability Office, which is the research arm of the Congress. I am not here in my capacity as a federal government employee, and I'm not here speaking on behalf of the United States government. I am here simply as a Gambian and as a trained political economist who is interested in the advancement of the Gambia.
Thank you so much. I think that's a very important disclaimer. Professor Conteh, please.
Okay, thank you very much. This is a very important day for me, a joyful day to be here with Honorable Touma, Touma Njie. Actually, I was an employee on her father, and I still remember the telephone number 368 that used to ring on my desk. Can you believe it? And he said to me, anytime someone calls for me, all you have to do is ring three times, 1, 2, 3. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to be part of this panel.
All right, thank you. Guys, we're very honored to have you here today, our viewers, and even everybody who runs Gunjur Online TV. As the theme goes, budgetary indiscipline and its implications for the Gambia specific. I think we can start with Palui, obviously somebody who can discuss about the constitutional underpinnings of the whole budgetary system or the legislation that is the backbone of the budget in the Gambia.
Yes, thank you, Dave. Just to start, unfortunately, I do not. I would have loved to have the estimates in front of me, but unfortunately, I don't. I've tried to look for them, but I couldn't find anything that was substantive. But just to set out the constitutional background, just like you've pointed out, the estimates is a legal requirement or is a constitutional requirement that the executive, through the finance minister, has to introduce to the National Assembly at least 30 days before the end of the financial year, and the estimates should be estimates which are meant for the appropriation bill for the subsequent financial year. And I believe it's something that's introduced under Section 152, subsection
152.
Subsection 1, yes. And I think the Finance Act, Section 21, subsection 1. And yes, the National Assembly would, under normal circumstances, well, according to the law, they have 14 days to consider, well, under the Constitution, I believe it's under the same provision, Section 152, subsection 1, capital A.
1A.
Yes, the National
1A.
Assembly.
1A, yeah.
Yes, 1A, yeah. The National Assembly has their only responsibility or their powers are limited to just considering the estimates and approving them. But clearly, as we have seen, with the exception of Honorable Njie and others, the National Assembly has more or less overstepped their bounds, and they've went beyond the powers that are available to them to pretty much create an additional budget line, which I think it's very relevant to this topic. So I am sure I'll leave it at that for now. So as the conversation goes on, I think other bits. I'll bring up the other legal angles to this conversation.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Sambou. Dr. Njie, obviously, as a political analyst and somebody who you can see is in the corridors of power in the United States. They have a stronger democracy, even though that might be questionable now. But yes, what's your take, please?
Well, it's interesting on many fronts, right? Because our representatives are there to, they're supposed to be there to protect our interests. The budget as a whole, I think, is still a work in progress because I feel like we are not focusing on the things that are of significance to the importance rather to the Gambian people. But beyond that, the reason why we're talking about this is because the Parliament decided to put in like some kind of a line item or something that is going to benefit the Parliament, members of the Parliament. And I did, listen to some of the interviews from some of these people, and I realized that some of these people are totally divorced from reality. For example, one of the things they are arguing is that they couldn't build their homes for some because the interest rate of the banks are expensive. As someone who spent years researching microfinance and whatnot in rural Gambia and micro lending, well, most of the women don't have access to capital, not because the banks wouldn't loan for them. Well, that's one, but because the interest rates are too high. So how do you go about and say that the government can go ahead and create a loan scheme where the representatives of these people can actually have sweetheart deals, whereas the masses they're representing do not even have access to some of these loans, right? So it's a total divorce from reality, and it's just sad to see the arguments they use because you shouldn't be in the Parliament to have access to money to build a house. That's not why you're sent there. You're sent there for a reason, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about this. But I feel like the members of the Parliament actually have one of the best sweetheart deals of any of the people in the Gambia. That doesn't mean that they don't deserve the money they're getting. That's not the case. The point I'm trying to make here is that given the economic situation we find ourselves in, given the deficit, the economic contraction, given that a good chunk of the budget goes towards the servicing of our debt, the fact that we're going to have another, $54 million to that so that we can give access to loans to the people who represent us it's just sad. It's really sad. I don't really have the right adjectives for this, but we'll talk a little bit more about this later.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Njie. Professor Conteh, as a numbers man, obviously you're an accountant, but also a professor of accounting. What's your take?
Well, for me, I would like to provide solutions rather than continue to criticize the government. The fiscal year 2021 budget was laid to Parliament and was approved, to my understanding. And I think we need to move forward to next year's budget discussion. For me, what I don't understand about the Gambia is that we talk about budget and then we talk about expenditure, but we don't even talk about revenue that we're going to have to enable us to carry on our expenditure. I listened to the representation when parliamentarians were talking, and the only person who talked about revenue enhancement was the member of parliament from Basse. So this is my contention, and also my very concern. Again, I'm looking at revenue, not expenditure, because in accounting we believe in conservatism. I believe that domestic tax revenue and non-tax revenue should be what should be looked at instead of trying to rely on grant money that is not legally binding. So in accounting we say it's not measurable, and if it is not available and measurable just because someone made a promise to you, why should it be added to the budget? That is my biggest nightmare. I have the budget estimates by the proposal by the executive. As Mr. Mane, I sent it to you in your email, and if you want to share it with folks, you can. And I am very, very concerned about the deficit spending approach that Minister Njie has taken. And even here in the United States, whether you are conservative or liberal, the question here is that are you going to mortgage yourself by increasing your expenditure more than what you have available? And I have yet to know the fund balance of the Gambia government. They cannot tell us. So how can you prepare a budget when you cannot even tell me ideally the actual revenue that you earned as of October 31, 2020, when you are preparing the budget for 2021? You cannot tell me the actual expenditure that you incurred, so that we should be able to know whether we have a budget deficit or surplus. No one can tell me the opening fund balance for 2020. So this is what I'm concerned about, the Gambia. It seems like we are just going, closing our eyes. But what I want to move on here is, and I'm very happy that Honorable Touma Njie is here, that we can engage her and other parliamentarians for way forward next year to say that when we are coming into 2021, as of June 30th, they should be able to tell us the ending fund balance for 2020. That should be the beginning fund balance for 2021. And the Ministry of Finance should be able to tell us a quarterly report. Let's say March 31, 2021, they should be able to give us report at least around May 31st. But you go to their website, you cannot find any documentation and so forth. So I don't want to criticize anymore. I want to work with parliamentarians. If I can work with one parliamentarian, or if we can work with one parliamentarian to sustain what we need to do next year, I think our country can move forward. We are very small. Small is beautiful. We can develop our country if we all are willing to go together. Let's swim together, or let's run together. Let's walk together to solve our problem. Politics, let's put politics aside and find a way to solve the problem of the Gambia. So I rest my case right now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Conteh. Those are very important points you made. But I think what you actually just demonstrated during your just short speech is why we are here. This budgetary indiscipline. They're spending money we don't have. I mean, you're talking about steps we can do to take in the future to correct the situation, but we are actually talking about what is happening right now and why we are having this conversation. So if we got members of parliament or members of National Assembly, and you can say with the utmost respect to them, some of them, they got their priorities all wrong. If we got a young lady, you can say, which is actually very disappointing. We don't want to make this personal, but it felt like she thought it was her right to be given a loan to build a house. So I think that is very, very wrong. So we have to fix these fundamentals. I always keep on saying this. I'm not the political scientist here. That's Dr. Njie's field. But I think some of the problems in Gambia are so evident. Even a blind person can see them. So if we got people in National Assembly who are meant to be representatives, but they are not even there for the people they're meant to be representing, they are there for their own narrow self-interest, I think we have a major problem. So anyway, I'll go back to Honorable Touma Njie. I think you had your fellow panelists, what they've said so far. And this is not that we're going to try and browbeat you. Basically, we're having a roundtable discussion, and it's not like a winner takes all. That's not why we're here. We're having a conversation as Gambians for a better way forward. So don't feel that we are just packed against you. If you want to say it, So we are all here just having a conversation, really. So don't feel isolated or being attacked, please. Thank you.
I don't take it personal. I think you are not addressing me as Touma Njie personally. You are addressing the National Assembly member, and I think that's the reason why I am invited. And it is just right for me to clarify certain things, like Mr. Sambou said rightly. Section 152(1)(a) clearly states that the National Assembly shall, within 14 days of the estimate being laid before it, give consideration and approve to approve the estimate. And if it says the estimate, it means what was given to us, what was laid. And what we did was actually wrong, because we actually added a new budget line which was not actually laid in front of us. And it rightly says, if you look at section 95 of the Constitution, the remuneration and allowances of the National Assembly, it says the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker, and other members of the National Assembly shall receive such remuneration and benefits, including retirement benefits, as an act of the National Assembly may prescribe, but never mentioned staff of the National Assembly. We can, if what my honorable colleague said is legal, yes, if it was only for National Assembly members, it might have been legal, but it is not legal if the staff of the National Assembly are included. And for me personally, and this is personal to me, what can be legal might not be ethical. And like I always say, I always opt for ethics because I need to guard my principle, I need to guard my integrity. And that was the reason why I did not vote for it. If I am given the trust by the people for their interest and for their benefit, I think that should be my main priority. There are many Gambians, like somebody mentioned here, are in need of loans. And of course, the interest rates in the banks are high. If we say the interest rates are high, we should fight for the interest rates to be reduced so that every Gambian can have access. But we shouldn't go and look for the benefit for the interest of our personal interest, which is a financial gain. And again, it is against us because the Constitution, section 112, specifically states that we should not, if you can just allow me, section 112 actually mentions that in the Constitution that all members are regarded as public servants of the people of the Gambia and should desist from any conduct by which they seek improperly to enrich themselves. And this is actually enriching ourselves at the interest and at the expense of the taxpayer, which is ethically and legally wrong. That was why I voted against it. I am not saying that those who voted yes, they might have a different perception, but I will still maintain my position and say it is wrong.
Thank you so much, Honorable. I'm glad you're not taking it personally because that's not we engaging here. I think you basically touched on some of the legal underpinnings of the whole budgetary process. Palui, hopefully you can add onto that.
Yes, I think what Honorable Njie said.
Yeah, go ahead. Palui, go ahead.
Okay, yes, I think what Honorable Njie said there was is actually spot on. It just clarifies what I pointed out, and because what we have to look at here, and Dr. Conteh clearly raised a very important issue, which is to say that all the finance minister was really looking at was how to spend money, but he's not telling us where is all that money coming from. And which is a bit strange. And to be honest, I think there were problems with the estimates. There were problems, for sure, because some of the monies that were allocated to certain departments, I don't want to pick and choose, but let me just keep it that way. So some monies which were allocated to certain aspects of public spending were of less priority to other areas, let's say health. And youth, for example, not much was allocated in those areas. But now coming back to the legality of everything, like I pointed out clearly, the powers of the National Assembly when it comes to the issue of how they're supposed to consider the budget estimates put before them, their powers are clearly stated. They can only consider and approve. What they cannot do is they cannot create an additional budget line, which clearly is what they have done here. So it's unlawful. One, and then the second part there is, I think Honorable Njie raised it as well, and I think it's a very tricky area. But I think whoever it was that thought of this motion, because clearly it was one person that presented the motion, but clearly, it was. I think it's reasonable to say that it was something that was discussed beforehand. So they must have lost sight because all they were looking at was Section 95. Yes, Section 95 says that the National Assembly can pass a law or can make law to basically determine their benefits and their pensions and their salaries and so forth. But like Honorable Njie clearly pointed out there, that is only limited to the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker, and other members. So which means this loan scheme, which includes the staff of the National Assembly, clearly they don't have any powers to go as far as that. And in addition to that, I think what people have to look at is the power or the National Assembly authority under Section 95 clearly states that the National Assembly can only exercise that power to make law for their pensions and their benefits, etc., if at all a bill is placed before them. But what was before them? It was not a bill.
Yeah.
It was not a bill. It was a budget estimate under Section 152. And there's nothing within Section 152 which states that the National Assembly can treat that budget estimate as a bill, or to suggest that they can create an additional budget line, which is why I think it is unlawful. And I hope that, I'm not sure what the House rules are, but I hope if there are any rules which permit for them to reconsider their decision, I think they should do that, because otherwise I think they are going to be doing a lot of disservice, not just to themselves and other members of the National Assembly who clearly do not agree with this direction, but they are going to clearly be bringing the dignity and the reputation of that institution into some serious questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sambou. Honorable Touma Njie mentioned this ethics and law. Yes, there is a difference between ethics, there's a difference between morality, but there's also a difference between legality. But I think for anybody who professes to be a representative of people, your community, like for example your constituency, I think you should be able to, like Touma Njie, see, obviously, evidently, has made the decision that there is ethics and there is legality here, but she decided to go for ethics. So that's why she didn't go for this loan. And I think it's important we celebrate that, because I think politicians like that in the Gambia, they are far. I think it's a scarcity out there, really. Anyway, Dr. Njie, being a political scientist, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Conteh wants us to move on from the politics. My bias is coming into play here as a political scientist, because I think that
I think Mr. Mane, I just need to mention something, because Mr. Sambou started interpreting sections of the Constitution, and I think that is subject. Interpretation is only subject to how the Supreme Court interpreted, but the estimate is actually a bill. Whether you can add that budget line into the bill is a question that only the Supreme Court can actually decide. But it is actually a bill. Until it is passed into, it is approved, it is still actually a bill. And what we actually see today is the second reading, which is the appropriation bill, which is not law until it is passed. And like Dr. Conteh said, it hasn't been passed yet. So it is not still late. We can push the NAMS to actually remove it from the budget. If we believe in our principles, if we respect our electorate, then I think this should be included in the actual bill, in the actual act that is to be passed eventually, if we respect our electorate, that is.
Okay, I think I just need to clarify one thing, because from what the Constitution says, the estimates are introduced or are placed before the National Assembly as estimates, not as a bill. The bill comes later on, at a later date. But at the point that the estimates were being considered, it was estimates that were put before the National Assembly under Section 152. 151 deals with the appropriation bill. So you have 152 first, that's when the estimate comes in. And once the estimates are addressed, then based on those estimates, the minister would then complete or compile the budget, obviously it comes up and then presents the appropriation bill under section 151. So so the procedures are two. You have the estimate first.
No.
There's no bill with the estimates, and then you
it is actually the first reading. What went on today was the second reading of that bill. So the first reading was the estimate. So it was actually a bill. But again, like I said, I cannot interpret it. It is subject to Supreme Court interpretation. But to my understanding, because what the minister did today was the second reading of the bill. So obviously the estimate must have been the first reading.
And was
then,
the
like I said,
was the
legality against ethics?
Okay, I have a question here. How about the 54 million? Was it included? Because when I read the Standard newspaper,
go ahead. If we go to the budget proper, you can see that the 54 million is included, because what was actually presented last week was 156 million, and today what was in the appropriation was 246, which has actually absorbed 61% of the difference between what was presented last and what was presented today. So it has a great effect in the deficit. And like I said, my colleagues have been preaching about reducing the deficit. And if this goes through, it means that we are actually acting against what we have been preaching, which is not principled. And that is the reason why I am appealing to whoever is listening to just advocate for the revocation of the 54 million, because it's not ethical. If the 54 million was added to the Ministry of Health, because if you look at what is presented for the Ministry of Health, there is a reduction, even though it's not much, but 339,000 is a lot of money. If that 54 million was added to the Ministry of Health, or the Ministry of Youth or Sport, or the Ministry of Basic Education, it would have made a difference.
Yes, thank you so much, Honorable. It's important. I mean, it's quite timely you mentioned health, because when you look at the figures, Dr. Conteh showed them to me, and he did a chart, very helpful chart. And I can't justify why the amount of money, let's say, was provided to the State House. Really, I thought us would just make point it out.
I can't hear now.
Can't hear me. I'm struggling today. Hello, guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yes, I can hear.
Nah, I got serious network problems today. Dr. Njie, go ahead, please, if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can. I mean, I was just talking about Professor Conteh. He wanted us to move from the politics. So I was just making a joke that as a political scientist, I can't help it, but I can't help but talk about the politics. And I think the politics is important because you cannot find a vaccine, excuse the cliche, without diagnosing the illness, right? And the problem here is political. It's a political problem that we have with the budget, the deficit, and all that stuff. It's all politics at the end of the day. And I'm glad that Representative Njie mentioned that we should do what is right for our constituents and respect our electorate. But the person who actually put this forward is not elected by anyone. He's not accountable to anyone. And you cannot have a system of government where you have people with that kind of power, where there is no checks and balances when it comes to them. So this is another one of the problems we have in our political process, right? Because you cannot have a Speaker of the House who is nominated by the president. You cannot have a member of the parliament who is wielding this kind of power, who is not accountable to anyone. This person, I'm sorry, and this is not an ad hominem or anything. They're not accountable to anyone. The government, the executive, anybody the executive nominates to run any agency or whatnot, that person is accountable to the executive. it's obvious that based on the Supreme Court decision that this representative is not accountable to anyone because they were actually grandfathered in to the system. So they can do whatever they want. Well, for the rest, the other people that are actually elected by this by the masses, I looked at the people who voted for this. Some of these people represent the poorest regions in the country. The fact that they can even go online trying to justify this absolutely is beyond me. It really doesn't make any sense at all. But again, it goes to the kind of government we have. We have a Western system of government, and I feel like a good many of our people really do not understand it. They really don't, right? So because the checks and balances are there for a reason. And when these people go back home, what are they being asked? Who are they representing? Who are these masses? So we need to talk about these things too, because these things are very important. Because at the end of the day, these people are probably going to go back and going to win another term. Because look at the speaker, the majority leader. He voted for this. This person represents anything between Njie and Kato. Look at all the problems going on there with the land issues, with the fishing issues and all that stuff. And the women, they're narcos, they're kankangos and all those things. And this is really what he is willing to put $54 million towards. The representative said something very important here. If this money was directed to the healthcare, we wouldn't have a problem, right? I think that wouldn't have been a bigger issue. But this money is actually going to their own pockets. And maybe I got this wrong, but once their term ends, they get what, $800,000? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Imagine getting $800,000 after your term ends, after you end serving the people. That itself, how they even justify it, I have no idea, given how poor the Gambia is. But again, I just want to, my interest is mostly in the politics and political behavior and why people vote for who they vote for. And those people, whether they actually espouse their beliefs or not, I do not know. But given the fact that these people are willing to spend $54 million on themselves, why their people are toiling. And if you look at the people who voted for this, they represent the poorest of the poor in the Gambia. Tells you a lot. But it also tells you that our politics is also changing. Then the fact that we're having this conversation today is a testament to that our democracy is a fledgling democracy, but we are actually having conversations because democracy is a process, right? It's not an end game, right? So the fact that this is actually a topic of conversation, I think is good. It's healthy. It's good for our politics. And again, 20 years ago, we wouldn't even have this conversation. Jammeh would have done whatever he wanted to do. He would just run roughshod, and his people, they do whatever they want to do. But the fact that we're having this conversation gives me a lot of hope. It gives me hope that our politics is changing, it's evolving, and the electorate is actually more involved. But the problem is, if you have a member of parliament who doesn't have an electorate, they can do whatever. They can be rogue. They can do whatever they want to do. And moving forward, this is something we need to revisit.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Njie. I think it's quite important you pointed that out. As a nominated member of parliament, or National Assembly rather. So she actually doesn't represent anybody. She was, like you said, she was grandfathered in. So it's just the self-indulgence of like seeing that, and I just listened to, we don't want to make this personal, but I just listened to her justifications in an audio she sent, and I was like, I couldn't believe it. I think if you break it down, she basically is saying that if we get this loan, we don't become corruptible. I know that's an oversimplification, but I mean...
I don't want to cut you off, but okay, if you think that somebody is corrupt, so you think the remedy to that is giving them more money? Come on. I mean, this is not serious.
Yes, definitely. Anyway, Dr. Conteh, please, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Dr. Njie, for the eloquent presentation. I do appreciate you talking about politics, but we have a National Assembly member here. And what I'd like to do now is to engage parliamentarians to see whether if we're going to have a vote on this motion. I think 16 people voted against. So I'm looking at the numbers. If we have 58 members, we should try to engage them. So for me, I don't want to take much of the time because I want nation building. When I sit down and think about the Gambia every single day to see so many young people dying, and also to look at the waste that is going on. Looking at the budget here, for one thing, I don't understand how the Ministry of Finance can justify having a budget of $1 billion when you know that the Ministry of Tourism was only allocated 100 million. I just don't get it. And then I look at agriculture. So if we look at, it used to be, I grew up on a farm. It used to be Senegalese. The Senegalese used to come to Gambia to buy our products, to go back oranges, and so forth. But now it seems like we are actually importing stuff from Senegal. So these are things I'm very concerned about. One thing I want to center myself on is that we have a member of the National Assembly, and I think by engaging her, she may be able to convince other people to vote again. Because if they're going to vote for this, I don't get it. I just do not get it. Yes, you are right. Most of the people who voted against this, who voted for this bill, came from the poorest constituencies in the Gambia. And so if we have someone here who is willing to engage us, I think we should accept her with open arms. And I really and truly would like for us to do that, to make sure that this thing is defeated. Because there is no way that we can go on into deficit spending. And yes, he's right. Honorable said that, so if they vote for this bill, they actually are going against what they preach. And here, a political scientist, you said that ethics is relevant, right? So in a sense that we have to find a way to solve our country's problems. For one, I think that we have talents in the Gambia, like Honorable Touma, Njie, and so many other young people who are in parliament. And I think if we can engage them, we should be able to find a way to reject this budget, because we cannot continue to have deficit spending all our lives. The minister cannot tell us. He cannot tell us, because a question was asked, of him last assembly meeting. Can you tell us the total assets of the country? Oh my God, the minister could not tell the parliament. And I say, my friend, all you have to do, say as of December 31, 2019, this was what we had in the total expenditure. This is what we have in liabilities. So all you have to do are those. If you have a deficit, you subtract from the liability to get the assets. So it's very sad. But again, I don't want to take much of your time here. But I am very, very happy in a sense that why I said let's leave politics alone, because we have a National Assembly member here. And we should try to engage her to help us so that this nightmare cannot be repeated anymore. And I think she has the wisdom, she has the time, she has the talent that she can engage other parliamentarians to make sure, because she will deliver. So that's all we have to do. And let me tell you one thing about this. I'm going to say it, it's on tape. If it were not for her grandfather, I wouldn't be who I am today. To see the granddaughter of someone who actually helped me to come to the United States is something that I treasure very well. So I challenge to my Honorable Touma to deliver for us. And thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Conteh. You made very important points, but I think I'm going to bring this conversation back to why we're here. I think somebody's playing in the background. All right. We use indiscipline because we thought that probably it's not even provocative enough. We don't want to provoke a debate. But I think we could have used far much stronger words than that. Because some of what you mentioned about the Ministry of Finance, what do you call that? Is that ineptitude? Is that criminal negligence? What is it? But we chose our word very, very carefully. That's why we went for indiscipline. And it's very broad, but we think it's also very civil. But I don't think there's anything, most of those, whether it's from the executive or a lot of people in the National Assembly, I don't think they are doing much that actually is worth emulating or even praising. It's not praiseworthy. I think most of the people out there are actually not fit for purpose at all. Anyway, Mr. Sambou, what's your take, please?
Yeah, I was just wondering, because I am not sure what the because obviously, like Dr. Conteh has pointed out, we have a National Assembly member here. So I think I would like to ask whether there's there's anything else within their house rules that could be used, or more or less, to try to remedy the current situation, to ensure that the mistake would be rectified before it becomes a much bigger problem. Because clearly what she's just explained now, I don't know how anybody can justify cutting the budget of the Ministry of Health. Because clearly, like what we have been seeing, not even before COVID-19 came, our health sector was pretty much non-existent. It was a sector that was so neglected, not just from the time of Jammeh. This was something that was historic from independence right up to today. So I cannot understand. I am sure there are other areas that monies could have been deducted from, but certainly not from health. Because for me, really, what I am thinking of is the amount of maternal deaths that we get from our hospitals. And clearly, I don't think. I think, if anything, we should be increasing the budget or the amount of money that health gets. So, which is why I'm really concerned. Which is why I think maybe Dave, if you don't mind me putting this question to your guest, to ask whether there's anything within the House rules that could be. I know Honorable Halifa Salah tried, but that didn't work. But hopefully, maybe now that
can I just make Can I just make a correction? Can I?
Yes, please go ahead.
Can I just make a correction there?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I said it was reduced, but what I meant to say was it was only increased by 339 million. Sorry, 339,000. That was what I meant to say. By only that, and if that 54 million was added, it would have made a lot of difference. It would have made a lot of difference if that much was added on top of the 339,000, because that is not much for the Ministry of Health, knowing the situation that we are in, COVID and the challenges, and looking at the child mortality rates and all that in the country. I mean, if that was added to the Ministry of Health, and also what Dr. Lamine Conteh said, we are too dependent on donor funds. And probably that is why they allocated this much to health, bearing in mind, considering, factoring the support that is going to come. Forgetting that the world is in a pandemic. Before you give to developing countries, you should also consider the effects that COVID-19 has in your own countries as well. So I think we should focus less on donor funds this coming year, because obviously every country in the world is challenged due to COVID-19. But then again, we must consider, because if we look at again the Ministry of Health, we sign protocols, but the percentage given to Ministry of Health is only 7.2%, which is also against the Abuja protocol that we signed, because it clearly states that we should give at least 15% of the budget. It should be allocated to the Ministry of Health, but that is not even adhered to. Look at the Women Affairs Ministry. It was only allocated 0.42%. That is nothing when you have the majority of people as children, as women. So it means that you are excluding the majority of people. Look at the central services. What importance has the central services got to do with the national budget? It was allocated 9.6%. And what is that for? Those are the things that we should address. The percentages given to different ministries. Higher education was given 1.2%. How are we going to train our children? That is for higher education and research. How do we expect our next generation to be developed? Countries are developed because of the education they give to their citizens. If we see China now, they spend a lot developing their kids in terms of education. That's why they are here today. The Minister of Higher Education stood there and told us the importance of education. Yet still, we only allocated 1.2% of the budget to the children that we expect to be our engineers, to build our roads, to be our doctors, to treat our citizens. How do we expect to teach them if we give them that much? The youth, 0.5%. It's wrong. I don't believe, I mean, we should respect the people that put us there and ensure that the national cake is given to them. If you give the office of the president 2.8% of the budget, and you give Ministry of Youth 0.4, and you expect us to develop those children, that is a cause for concern. Those are the things, and I agree with you. Budgetary indiscipline. It is proper indiscipline. I am not against deficit, because there is no country in the world, except probably the Qatars and stuff, that operate without a deficit. But a deficit must be put in good use to invest, to come up with a yield, to pay its investments. But a deficit that is used in the recurrent budget is not good enough. A deficit should reflect in the development budgets. Otherwise, it is just consumption. It is just what the National Assembly members have done. Give themselves loan from the deficit. And then what? Develop our homes rather than develop our country? That is why I am against it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I don't know, probably, Mr. Sambou, did that answer your question? You are mute. You are mute. You are mute.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Yes. Honorable Touma, what I was trying to get to was, what is the solution now with regards to this 54 million? Because clearly, I'm sure if that 54 million is released from that scheme, I'm sure it will go a long way in helping in other areas. So, is there anything, or is there any more that can be done within the rules to try and reverse that decision within the House itself? Because I know Honorable Salah did try, but that didn't succeed. But hopefully now that the members that voted for it, and obviously I think we are just focusing on the people that voted for it, but there were others that abstained and sat on their hands. Because on an issue like that, I cannot see how anybody could abstain. Clearly, unless you agree with it and you don't want to make it very, very obvious. So, is there anything that can be done now to address the problem?
Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Sambou. If I could just buttress that point, was the honorable. Yes. How can we revoke this? Really, if possible, if that's the right time to use. Because I think it's an abuse of power, really. It's an abuse of privilege, actually, to be very frank with you. The Gambia is not in a position to be that wasteful. These people don't feel that they deserve to be given a loan. When the guy who is a street cleaner as a civil servant couldn't get a loan. If you even think about it, I know this is very, maybe it's a very juvenile argument to say, but your job as an MP or National Assembly member, as you say, it's a very, very temporary thing. You only guarantee a job for 5 months, 5 years or 4 years, 5 years maximum. So how can you take a $1 million loan? You don't even know if the next round of elections in votes you're actually going to be a member of parliament. It's no guarantee. So it is self-indulgence, and it actually was very, it's very disappointing. But like I said, we actually, like Dr. Conteh and I agreed, we need to try and work on solutions. But it's a lot lacking back home. Until we fix the fundamentals, I think we have a big problem. What's it called? Dr. Njie, I don't know what's your take.
Yeah, I mean, in 2017, I think I'll send you that article.
Yes, Dave, you missed my question.
Can I come in?
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Yes, Palu's question is to what's it called, Mrs. Honorable Njie. How do we fix this problem? I use the word revoke. Can we revoke it? I don't know if that's the right terminology to use. This $54 million loan.
Can she hear you?
I think we are going to, we will be debating the budget speech next week, and then after that it will be the appropriation, which will be at committee stage. We will go by it stage by stage. So I think that will be the best time to contact your National Assembly members. Likewise, we should also be contacting our colleagues, because it was only 17 members that obviously voted for it, and with 58 members. It means that if we are honest, and following Honorable Sana Jawara's interview with the Hot FM, I think he's shown remorse that he would have, going back, he would not have voted for it. So if we should really show remorse and go back to listen to what our electorates have said, once we go back to the appropriation bill and looking at it, we can just decide not to go ahead with it. If we are, if we go with our conscience, that is, and listen to what our electorate said. But like I said again, we should be answerable to our electorate. There is a recall clause in the Constitution, but it says it must be through an act of Parliament, which I think no National Assembly member would actually vote for, because that is probably voting again, looking at what has been happening. If we are principled and respect the electorate that elected us in office, I think we would be open to be able to be recalled if need be, because I think that would strengthen our leadership, that would make us more committed to our job, knowing that we can be recalled anytime. Just like we think that we have a right to impeach the government, the president, we should also give our electorate that right if we are true to ourselves. That is what I believe. But I think we should work on pushing, having these kinds of conversation, so that it will bring back the mindset of the people that voted yes, push them back. Because I know for sure that once they go back home, lie down on their pillows, think of the reaction of the people, because like Mr. Mane had said, we have a good citizenry now, a citizen that is conscious. Anyhow, we came from dictatorship, that is different. But I can say that we shouldn't allow to be driven back to what we fought against. And these are the kinds of things that will drive us back. If you give too much power to people that you elected in office to protect your interests, then that is taking us back to dictatorship. So I think we should think and come up with that act of Parliament that will open up for a recall. I don't mind being recalled if I am not doing my job. I think that's the best thing to do. But we have next week to talk to our National Assembly members and try revoking it. As a party, my party has a really strong stand against this.
So I think, Mr. Sambou, I think that answers your question. So there is a mechanism of revoking it, of recalling it, of cancelling it. So say he's saying we need to do some political lobbying. We need to contact our MPs. We don't have MPs as people in the diaspora, unfortunately, because the franchise has not been extended to us yet. But I think if we can all contact our MPs or National Assembly members from the area we come from, I'm being from Brufut, so it should be about Jallo. I'll be on the phone to him tomorrow. You don't need to worry about that. And likewise, Dr. Conteh, likewise, Dr. Njie, likewise yourself, Mr. Sambou. I think probably we might make some progress, but I think it's worth a try. Dr. Conteh, you heard what the Honorable has said. What's your take? What can you add onto the
conversation? I want her to help us because usually what I have noticed, my experience, when you call them, they answer the telephone. The second time you call them, they won't. So how can you reach someone trying to lobby them? So for me, I have identified 5 parliamentarians, and I'm engaging them. So far I got 2. So the other 3, I'm going to try to talk to them to say vote against this bill. But if I can also, Honorable Touma, if you can engage the gentleman from Opa Fuladu West to accept my telephone call. Because I listened to the audio.
Can I just clarify something? I wouldn't advocate to vote against the bill, because the bill is a whole thing. It's the whole budget that is the bill. We can remove it, extract it from the document, but not
whatever recommendations whatever recommendations you have, because we need you. So whatever recommendations you have, please do. but I'm going to try the best I can, especially those who abstain from voting. And I even wrote to the executive, and it's a right to the Secretary General. I wrote to the Secretary General, and he can tell me that you write to your representative. I said, I don't have a representative because I live in diaspora. I don't have the right to vote. So therefore, the executive is my representative, and I haven't heard from them. So, so I want clarification on this, Honorable. I like the idea that we take the 54 million out of the budget. What next are you all supposed to do in terms of? So you have the second reading of the budget, correct? Can she hear me?
Hello.
Honorable Touma, I had a question for you. That are you going to have another reading of the budget, or when are you going to put this into vote?
The thing is, I'm listening through my phone, so I'm sort of like seconds or minutes behind.
Oh, okay.
Okay. That's why you struggle a little bit, yeah, because it will echo.
Can you just repeat the question? I think I must have missed the question because I'm listening through my phone because I can't hear from. I'm listening through my phone. So if you can ask that question again, I think I must have missed
Dr. Conteh, go ahead, please.
I just want to know the next step that you have to take. You all are going to take in terms of the $54 million loan scheme.
What I've just said, it is part of the appropriation now. So when we receive because when we go back, we're gonna receive the estimates in a new form because we were given the estimates which we've amended. So next week we are going to receive a new one, and it will be a budget line. What I am suggesting is remove that budget line, because it will be part of the estimates now. But what we can advocate for, what we can do, is to extract it from as a budget line, remove it completely, and revert the National Assembly budget back to the proposed 156 million. Remove that 54. It can either be moved to another budget line or completely removed, and it will reduce the deficit in that case.
Okay.
That is my proposal, because it is unnecessary. It is an unnecessary expenditure which does not go to the national coffers. It goes to our personal purses, because if we develop our homes, it's not going to develop the country. I will not pick, no National Assembly will pick somebody from the street and bring them to their home to enjoy that resources from the national cake. It is me and my family that is going to enjoy it at the expense of the taxpayer, which is wrong.
Yes, thank you so much, Honorable. Dr. Conteh, I think that answers your question.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to make efforts, whatever method you can do, whatever effort. I think if you have to lobby your colleagues in the National Assembly, I think it's a worthwhile fight. I think it's a worthy fight. I think it's a honorable fight. I think you definitely should take it on. This 54 million, the Gambia is in no position to give it to MPs to build a house for themselves. I think it's immoral, it's unethical. It might actually be illegal. I'm not too sure. Dr. Njie, what's your take, please?
Yeah, I think the 54 million is one problem, but we have a bigger problem too with the central services, right?
Yes,
we've created a slush fund for the executive, right? They can just tap into it, do whatever they want, right? Because apart from servicing of our debt, this is the biggest chunk of actually the budget.
Yeah.
And in every budget, whatever the executive puts there, the executive is telling you what they care about. Mm-hmm. And from this budget, you can see really what the executive actually cares about, right? And for example, the Honorable talk about higher education with 1.2% and whatnot. I wrote an article in 2017. I actually took a much deeper dive into the budget than I did this year because I've been a little bit busy. But when I looked at that budget, one thing I realized is just, so for example, here, my job in the federal government is to look at agencies and how they spend their money and track that money, track the deficit as well. But I also look at program evaluations and all that stuff. When I look at that budget from 2017, what I realize is that there's so many, what I'll call them tautology, right? It's like repetition of things within different names. For example, we shouldn't have a Minister of Higher Education and Basic Education. It's ridiculous, right? There's no reason for it. There's no reason whatsoever why we should have a Minister of Higher Education. So that's more red tape, more expenditure, when we can actually have one agency, one department, and have smaller agencies within it to do different tasks. But the other problems we have is that we're giving so much money to our defense department. Why do we need to spend all that money, Honorable, to for defense? Really, when we have already mortgaged our security to foreign entities, we have bigger problems beyond these 54 million. What about agriculture? If the commanding height of our economy is agriculture, why aren't we invested in, new technology? Because I spent so many years going to these rural areas doing research. And these people represent these people. That is the thing that I don't understand. The houses actually they are building are not even in these villages. They're actually in Congo, right? The people they say they're representing, I mean, look at their hospitals in the rural areas. They don't even have doctors. They have dispensers, I mean, but the fact that this is where, their mind, what they're willing to fight for speaks volume. So moving forward, what is the Parliament's plan? What is your plan, especially with the central services? Because this slush fund doesn't make any sense. It's going to be used for per diems and all that crap when every single one of these departments already have their own budget. So it really doesn't make any sense.
That's right.
Yeah. Honorable?
Yeah, that was something that was thoroughly debated, especially during the committee stage about centralized services, because we actually proposed to have those monies moved to the units where they should apparently or eventually go to. If you followed the budget session last week, the Minister of Finance defended those appropriations and eventually got away with it. But because the FPAC actually recommended, he said part of it was going to agriculture, part of it was going to the central bank, part of it. But the thing is, he eventually got away with murder, I would say, because if what his defense was that so most of them were monies that were actually not there. And if they were allocated to agriculture, we would have lost, again, depending on donor funds, we would have lost monies that were for Gambia because they would have thought that we had reached our targets, while those monies were apparently only in numbers, but not actually monies that were actually there. But for me, the budget is not money that is actually there. The budget is a proposal, and then we should work for it to have those things. But how do we work to achieve the budget to reduce actual deficit when we don't actually manufacture anything? The deficit will keep getting wider and wider. We'll keep going deeper and deeper in the hole. If you look at Ghana, for example, the reason why they are moving towards getting out of the developing countries classification to a middle developed country is because they have established industries in every region. And that way, they would increase their balance sheet because their export income would increase. And their import income will increase. And their export balance will go down because they would have more revenue exporting in exchange and more foreign currency rather than us depending on imports, because then our balance payment will keep going down. Instead of receiving, we will pay out. And because we don't earn foreign currency, our exchange rates will keep going up. And that is what we actually need to look into to ensure that we balance our sheets by manufacturing and trying to export, even if it is within the region. Because we used to export grammars. We used to manufacture, make things from those groundnuts, even if it was very minimal. But that is no more. How are we going to do that? A member of parliament mentioned something about some artisan something. Everybody was laughing, but that is something that we can actually work on. If you go to Burkina Faso, they do that. If you go to Ghana, they do that. Why not Gambia? We must start from somewhere. Try to export certain things to earn more income. We are a tax-based economy. All we can depend on is tax. And where is that tax coming from? If you do not have manufacturers that will pay that much tax, you only earn on income tax and the duty waivers. When you come as a big business, they give you waiver. And where does that money go into? They waive the tax that you go into the government coffers for them to be giving kickbacks. I'm sorry to say that happens in this country, and that should stop. I think we should be more fiscally disciplined. When I hear the executive saying fiscal discipline, I just laugh because that is what to us. They just say it, but they are not practicing it. And why not? We should hold them accountable for it. But if they see National Assembly members also working for their coffers, how to keep the executive accountable? If we have started doing the same, I think that is my take. It's a cause for concern, but we must try to make the government work harder for the people of this country, because that is our only hope.
Are you all there?
Looks like Dave has gone off.
Yeah.
Mr. Njie, by the time Dr. Njie, by the time Dave comes back, you said something here. You said something here that really caught my eye. The centralized services. So the other ministries also have jobs that the centralized services may be doing. So it's duplication of services. And if we actually want to create millionaires in the Gambia, if we scrap these centralized services, I think we can move our country forward, because centralized services actually has the second highest budget of one can say 2 billion, and it is 8.97% of budget.
Yep.
So I do support your reasoning on that. And then you talk about the defense, which has 740.
In fact, Dr. Conteh, in this appropriation, it's 2 billion, 2.1 billion.
Wow.
It's been increased from 1.9 to 2.1 billion.
So what they
according
have,
to this new.
So what they have on the website?
What we received today is actually 2.1 billion. Oh. So it's been increased from 1.9 to 2.1 billion actually. So it is a cause for concern. This appropriation bill presented to us as 2,127 million.
Wow.
So it is a cause for concern, apparently it is. And it takes up to it takes up to 9.6% of the actual appropriation, which is a cause of concern. Much, 9.6%.
Wow.
It is a cause for concern, to be honest. Yeah, it is. I think every Gambian. I think that should be addressed next week. It is something that must be justified. It's something, because since I came home, I've been working on it. We just received this today, and it's like, if you look at it, I've been on my bed. That's why I've been working on it, because these are figures that we need them to justify to us. We need them to tell us why certain budget lines were reduced. Yes, it was based on our recommendation, but I don't think that we actually recommended for the centralized services to be increased to 2.1 billion. It is a cause for concern.
I'm having technical problems today, which is crazy. Mr. Sambou, I mean, you guys go ahead, have a free flow, have a conversation. I might be coming on and
Yeah.
off. I've
Yes,
actually
what
went to the router, so yeah.
Yes, what I was just going to add to to this issue about the amount of money that's allocated to central services, because one would have thought that in this age of COVID-19, there would be less people traveling around the world. Well, the president doesn't seem to, excluding the president, of course, because he seems to still be enjoying his jets and his nice allowances. So yeah, because in the age of COVID-19, I think it has to be factored in that there's going to be less traveling around the world, and there's going to be less allowances and less per diem. So clearly, that should reflect. That should be something that reflects in the budget. But it looks like this budget is just another budget just for another year, just as if COVID-19 hasn't happened. Everything is as it used to be. I think it's a problem. And I'm sorry, I hope, Mr. Mane, you wouldn't mind, because I think this is actually something that is related to the issue of budgetary discipline. Because the amount of money that goes to central services usually funds a lot of things. And I think we can all agree that a lot of not just civil servants, but other people who have government contract or who are connected to the system end up making themselves very wealthy out of government funds. And I think it connects into this issue of anti-corruption, because what worries me is we have a corruption bill that has been in the national bill that has been in the pipeline, somewhere in the pipeline for, I think I understand, I was speaking to somebody 2 days ago. They said it was something that was introduced, that was supposed to be introduced under the Njie government. So in total, it has been in the pipeline for 8 years. So I think maybe if at all we can have some movement on that angle, I think we can come to a position whereby there would not be a need anymore for the ministry to allocate so much money to central services, because the system would be so watertight that very few people are going to have access to those funds.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Sambou. I think it goes back to this misgovernance we talk about in the Gambia, this lack of accountability that is there. So it all goes back to having for us to trying to fix our foundation again. I don't know how we do that.
I think we need an informed citizenry, and I think the citizenry is becoming more informed, right? Which is good. I think social media has changed a lot of these things, right? But I still feel like we have a long way to go, because I've said this a million times, and I will say it again. The people who represent us are not a deviation from the Gambian experience. They're an absolute and necessary expression of it. These people are us. We deserve every single ounce of them. Every single ounce of them. Because what's going to happen, they're going to go back to their villages in Kiang or Jara next election, and they're going to vote for them again.
Yeah.
They're going to vote for them again, right? So again, we can sit here and complain, but I think at the end of the day, we deserve them. We deserve these people. I think moving forward, the other thing the parliament, I think they need to look at this gerrymandering, right? Because there is no reason why these smaller districts with 2,000 people should have the same amount of representatives as someone in Congo South or Congo North, or even Congo East. It doesn't make any sense at all. So until and unless we start appropriating or doing like proportional representation in a way where people are absolutely represented, we're going to keep on having these problems. Because what you're going to have a small district of somewhere in Fonyi or somewhere in Nyamina with 5,000 people, and literally everybody knows that. They're going to go back and they're going to vote for them again. Because they're not voting for them because they're doing something for them. They're voting for them because they know them, or because they believe that this party is the party of whatever, right? Because it's all about pageantry. And I think Barrow is already tapping into that. He's already tapped into it, actually, because it's the politics of Pernia, it's the politics of Jawara, it's the politics of Jammeh, and we're basically on autopilot. But we need an informed citizenry. I think we're trying, we're getting there, but we still have a long way to go. Because because there's no way Sidia Jara is going to get away with this. He's not going to go to Woolly, and there's no way Halifa Saleh is going to get away with this. There's no way Honorable Njie here is going to get away with this. But some people will get away with it because of the people they represent and the places they represent. So until and unless we get this kind of an informed citizenry, again, like I said, we have a Western system of government, and I still feel like the president is this bull, this monster. Our deputies, basically they're just people who are there because we know them. Until and unless we start changing our political attitude, the way we approach politics and the people we vote for, we're going to have the same problems all over again, because nobody's held accountable for anything. Because the only way you hold a representative accountable, it's like what Honorable Njie said, you recall them or you vote against them. So, until and unless we change that, we're going to have this problem moving forward. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead, Honorable.
Mr. Njie mentioned something about electorate being aware, social media being informative. But then what other things are they doing? If you go to some place like Nigeria today, this issue would have been come by now. But what are we doing about it? We talk about it 2-3 days and then we move on to something else. And then we get used to it. And then eventually people will just say, talk about it few days. But if it was in Nigeria today, it would have been in court. And it happened in Uganda. In fact, it was during the COVID. There was a supplementary bill, and one MP just brought a motion and added 5,000 euro, equivalent of 5,000 euro for each MP, and it was challenged by another MP in court. And they asked them for an injunction, and they went ahead, they disbursed the money, but then he went ahead for an injunction and asked them to return those money, and they returned them. But what are we actually doing about it, apart from just talking about us at social media, abuse, and we should take legal action. Somebody should be bold enough to take us to court. If a member of parliament was bold enough to be dismissed and take the government to court and won, what is stopping you taking us to court? What is stopping me from taking the parliament to court? But then again, it said in the constitution, but it is unconstitutional. It is contrary to the constitution. It is against the law. And we are, as lawmakers, we are breaking the law. Are we lawmakers or are we lawbreakers? I think somebody should be bold enough to take it to court.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Honorable. While we just, Mr. Sambou, if you just give me 1 sec there, because I've had this conversation with people on lots of forums. I'm like, Gambia's come to a situation whereby we need to start the culture of litigation against the government and their institutions. I gave them an example of the IEC. And Sol mentioned, Dr. Njie mentioned it here about proportional representation. You cannot have a constituency like, let's say, Janjambure. I don't know how many. What's the sorry?
1,980 registered voters.
You have 2,000 registered voters. You have an MP. So how does this work? So, but we can always challenge this by going to court. I think we need to do this. I'm glad the Honorable, who is a politician, actually brought this up. But I think I will just ask you, Honorable, you as a parliamentarian or National Assembly member, you can take this thing to court and we'll back you. We can give you that guarantee. If it's court fees, lawyer fees, we'll be very happy to dip our hands in our pocket and pay for it. And I did mention to a friend back home, like Madi Jobate. I was like, Madi, do we have these civil society groups in the Gambia who are actually going to be willing to challenge some of these misgovernance that is so ingrained in our country through the legal system, to drag them through the courts? Because I think we come to that stage. I'm very happy that a member of parliament can actually bring this up, because I think the Gambia has come to that stage. And it's lots and lots of things in the Gambia when it comes to like poor governance. And basically, some of them are criminal negligence, really. They are verging on the criminal. And we can always counteract them by going through the court system, because it's not going to be like civil disobedience where it's going to cause us problem, but go take them through the court. Let the whole country and the whole world look at the spectacle about it, and then they can make a decision. Mr. Sambou, sorry, I interrupted. If you can give us your legal angle on that, please.
Yes, for me, well, I think it's well, for other issues, I would agree that yes, civil society has to be more engaging, and they have to also factor in litigation, because it's all well and good. It's all well and good getting engaging in protests and also writing articles, but it should not just stop at that. If that doesn't work, we have to consider other things, of which litigation is one. But I think on this occasion, I would slightly disagree that it is up to civil society to litigate. I think the executive, this is what we have here is the legislative arm of government trying to wrestle away powers that belong to the executive to themselves. So clearly, it is the duty or the responsibility of the executive to go to the Supreme Court and ensure that this issue is addressed. Like I said, the constitutional provision makes it very clear they can only consider and approve. It doesn't say, oh, they can create. It doesn't give them the power to create an extra or an additional budget line. They don't have those powers. So I think on this occasion, it is the executive that should take legal action. But failing that, obviously, the executive is not just a body that exists in isolation. It is a body that exists to represent the interests of all Gambians. So yes, I would agree that yes, on a much broader point, yes, civil society and private citizens, including individual National Assembly members, too, I think we all have a responsibility to ensure that action is taken to make sure that these things addressed. Because personally, I don't think that talking alone is going to address it. It's not going to solve it. Just like Honorable Njie said, we are just going to talk about it for a few days and we'll all forget and move on. But yes, if we can agree on this platform to put together a petition and some crowdfunding to make sure that this goes to court, I am all in.
Yes. Thank you so much. Yeah. Just to basically buttress what you just said.
Just mention, there's a petition committee at the National Assembly now, so you can send a petition and petition the National Assembly, and then force us to do an investigation and revisit this decision. I think it is up to the electorate, because the monies that we are allocating ourselves, we are denying the citizen. Yeah. They have a right to demand what is rightfully theirs. They shouldn't pay for us to build our homes. They should come up and say no.
Okay, so sorry to interrupt there. Honorable Njie, if somebody wants to send a petition to this petition committee, how do they go about that?
I will get back to you on that. I will make inquiries and I'll send you an email tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Because I don't want.
I have a question for Honorable Njie.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, a quick question. So I know there's also a budget allocated. The National Assembly is also, getting their own budget, line item part of the budget as a whole. So the parliamentarians, do they get allowances for cars and house rent and, allowances for, do they get per diems and whatnot when they go on trek to like villages and whatnot?
When we go on trek, it's only the normal civil servant allowances that are paid for overnight. And when we travel, it's the normal civil service per diem that we also receive. But we don't have extra allowances. Last year, we included a constituency development fund, which we've been crying for, because that can make our electorate holders accountable, because it's money that comes from the consolidated fund and needs to be accounted for based on what projects we have for our constituencies. But it was approved last year, but we have not done the modalities to receive them. We are yet to receive it, and it can be up to 300,000, but it must go into the constituency. And that was what some of the members were trying to justify, this 54 million, but it is actually not the same, because that one goes into the constituency itself. You can use it to build like a school, like a library, like something that your constituency needs, which is actually the same as this loan. That was what some members were just using to justify this loan, but it is actually not the same. And if it was really, the way we are fighting for this loan, if we had fought for that constituency development that much, it would have been given by now. But that one doesn't go into our pockets. It's still pending, and we've been pushing and pulling. It was actually approved like few months ago, but it's yet to be disbursed. What we are saying is that we are going to include it into next year's one so that we can have a proper proposal and have much more money to invest in our constituencies if we invest it in our constituencies. But some of us, we have projects lined up for our constituencies, because my idea is to take off the kids from the streets in Banjul and build up an IT center and a library, which we've already had in mind just before the COVID-19. And with the help of some people from Norway, they sent us laptops. It was meant to be open from March, but because of COVID, we did not want to bring kids together. But now, hopefully, when it is disbursed in January or February, we will move ahead with that project. But that way, our electorate can hold us accountable, because it is government money that is given to us to inject in our constituencies. But for now, there is nothing that is given for our constituencies.
Okay.
I know.
Thank you so much, Honorable. I think that's actually a cause for concern there. I think the Ministry of Education should be responsible for building libraries, but giving disbursing money to MPs to tell them, oh, you build a library. I think that's actually poor governance again. I think those are some they make them corruptible.
It is not given like that. You need to bring a proposal, a project plan.
Okay.
And then you need to retire. You need to give them a project plan with all expenses. It can go up to 300. It is not just money that they are going to give you. You bring the project plan, and then at every 3 months, you give them an update and you retire. That was how we came up with it, because it was properly planned. That is why we are still working on the modalities to ensure that every penny that's given to you will be accounted for. That's why it's taking this long. Otherwise, it would have been disbursed. But we are playing with care. It is the members of the authorities that are holding on to it and making sure that before it's disbursed, it is properly planned, so that every dime that is given will be accounted for, because that is taxpayers' money.
Thank you for that clarification. But if I can just put back in again, please. Sorry, Dr. Njie and Dr. Conteh. I think if we centralize, if education department, ministry gets responsible for building libraries, and they take the rest that away from the MPs, I think that'll be good, because then you don't have any political calculations. I think that's very important. I think the executive and the functionary of the state, in Gambia, they're too intertwined, they're too interlinked. And I think it causes a lot of confusion and problems. So the Ministry of Education should be responsible for building school, should be responsible for building whatever you call them, libraries or whatever, anything to do with education. Let them deal with it. If there are a certain MP,
Mr. Mane, can I just butt in there? It is a project that I plan to do. It is not political. I have a foundation. Irrespective of being a politician, is something that is planned. Trying to take, because I am passionate about education, and I believe that the education system is failing our children. One, because of them cannot read or write, not because they are stupid, but they are not given the opportunity. Some of them have books to read. That is why I said to bring it into the community, so that they can be exposed to tap that hidden talent. It is an opportunity that they must be given. They are not stupid. It is the talent that needs to be awakened from them, and then they can excel. I have never been smart in school, but I was given the opportunity. And why not give those children the same opportunity to make sure that that hidden talent is tapped out from them? That is why. But obviously, it is the Minister of Education and my colleague Usman Silla have done great by rehabilitating the library, which is in his constituency. With his support, they donated computers, books, and everything, which is through the Ministry of Education. But this is something that I want to bring closer to Banjul South children. You will think that the children from the rural areas are worse off. The children from the urban areas are worse off. They are exposed to higher poverty. They are exposed to more hunger, because the people in the rural areas, they grow what they eat, most of them. So they eat healthy food. But the people in the urban areas, they don't have access to all. Sometimes they go without food. They go without most of those things. And the serenity in the urban areas is not in the rural areas. We are more disadvantaged, which is forgotten by most of us, thinking that because they are in the cities, they are more advantaged. They are not. So they need to be thought of as well.
Yes, sorry. I just want to clarify that quickly, Dr. Njie. I understand what he's saying, but that needs to be supplemental. I'm part of the Brufut diaspora and a lot of Combo diasporas as well, whereby we actually build a library in Brufut. We actually build a computer center in Brufut, the Brufut Association in the UK. But even that, I think what we do should be supplementary to what the education department does. So that's why I'm saying that if we move that away, that role completely from MPs and just centralize it, I think it would be better. This for me is all about this governance in the Gambia. It's just the way the country is governed. So I mean, in the UK, you have a Ministry of Education; they're responsible for that. I mean, obviously, local governments, like for example, in my area, they are responsible for the libraries as well. So that's also fine. But you need to have a central body. But if you have all these disparate bodies doing stuff, it's not centralized. I think there's always a problem. That's all. Nothing personal against you and your initiative. That's what we have in the Gambia. But we are thinking of talking here. This whole discussion is how do we improve the Gambia? How do we improve the governance there? So if we can centralize a whole lot of things, it will be better. So Gambians abroad, like you said, some people donate, what's it called? Radio. Actually watched your video last night. You mentioned some ladies in Norway donated, what's it called, laptops. Those are all supplementary. And we are very happy as people in the diaspora to do that, because we want to help. And, like what the central government needs to be able to do its role. And it's always been very missing there. I know, Dr. Njie, you're itching to speak now. I'm very sorry. You can.
No, it's okay. No, I think the parliament having this kind of budget makes sense, though, right? So in America, we call it pork barrel, right? Bringing the bacon home, right? Where politicians can actually advocate for their constituents, because the politicians should know their constituency more than the national government, because they represent them, right? Except that in Gambia, most of these representatives haven't lived in their villages since they left for primaries, since they left grade 6 to move to Banjul or Serekunda. But they should be the ones who are supposed to actually advocate for their people, and not every constituent have the same problem. So the central government can oversee at the top, but I don't think they will understand the whims and the emotions and the problems on the ground, except when they hear directly from the people, and who basically speaks for those people are our representatives. So I think it actually makes sense to decentralize it that way, where there is a budget. I mean, there is money allocated to the parliament. Or, in the United States, the way it works is just part of the national budget, where you have representatives pushing for a bridge in their district, and they won't vote for the bill until and unless that bridge is built. Well, in New York City, they might not need that bridge, but in the rural areas, they do. So here, for example, the Department of Agriculture is also in charge of housing to a certain extent with rural development. It's also in charge of food aid and, food stamps and stuff. So the food stamps benefit proportionately a lot of people in the urban areas, but it also benefits some people in the rural areas. But in that way, people in rural districts can actually vote for a bill that is actually going to subsidize farmers, whereas people in the cities can actually have access to food stamps, right? So I think it actually makes a lot of sense to not have that centralization, because we have tried centralization since time immemorial, since before independence, right? What has it? It hasn't yielded much. So perhaps we should start going to where the representatives themselves can go to the parliament and cry for their districts, basically speaking to their needs, their wants, and their aspirations. That's the way it should be. The problem is that I watch most of their debates. I really do. Some of them really, they don't even have that substance. They're so shallow. They're not talking about things that you would think that people would, because here, if you go to the floor as a representative, all you hear is my district, my district, my district. Yes. You go over there, their ideas are all about national politics. You seldom hear some of the problems, at the granular level, the issues. Some of these people are from very small districts, right? They should be able to at least build something there, like improve the hospital or something. But you don't hear those things. So I'm actually in support of something like that, because I think it's actually more efficient than actually having the national government do everything. Again, it's the role, it should be the Minister of Education who should be doing this. But I think that having Parliament having access to this kind of would push them to do it. Yep.
Yes, go ahead, Honorable, please.
What you fail to realize is that our budget is not region based. The executive controls the budget. All we have to do is oversight function over the budget. We approve it, and once we approve it, it is no longer our document, and we don't have to actually prepare the budget. What we can do, that's why we need to have a good relationship with the executive so that we can, when we have parliamentary questions and they answer and they make their promises, we hold on to their promises, but we don't have a right to come up with any budget. If the budget was region-based or project-based, but it is the government, that is why it helps them to do their politics rather than develop the budget. If you look at what is happening now, the executive is focusing on areas that it wants to win, that it thinks that, look at the Kiang, the Hakalang roads, it's the Banjul projects. It's because they want to win the hearts and the minds of those people. They do not give us that liberty. The National Assembly does not have that liberty. When we had the mixed parliament before, remember we had the ministers, cabinet ministers sitting at the National Assembly when they had to elections. That way, that was more effective because they were closer to their people. We are close to our people, but we do not have the rights on how the money is disbursed. They bring their budget. We cannot, like Mr. Sambou said, we cannot legally add new budget lines. Obviously, if it was me, I would have included for the schools in Banjul to be renovated, for books to be given to the children, for free water, cheaper electricity, but we are not at liberty to do that. In UK, you have every council, they also have their budgets. Yes. And the MPs from their councils disburse and they develop their councils. But in Gambia, we don't have that liberty. It's different. I wish we could have that. That way, we can be held accountable for not developing our constituencies. But that is why we are fighting for constituency development. But it starts from there. Once you have constituency development fund, if it is properly used, then the government will see that, wow, the MPs are actually, and then 300 next term, 500 the following term, 1 million. And that way you can even have road projects. And it is not you, it is the office of the member of parliament. So whoever comes in will inherit that constituency development fund. And the people start knowing that a certain amount is allocated for our development. And then they will start demanding, they will start asking, this is where we want. We want you to subsidize the school fees of our children. We want you to make to improve the schools in your constituency. That way we can work with the ministries to put in what we have and then support them to also chip in, demand for more from central government. I think it is a start. Okay. And I don't think it's a bad idea, but it is a start that we must start doing and then eventually improve on it.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm going to let Dr. Conteh come in. I was just going to say thank you so much for actually clarifying my own point for me. I didn't get there in the end. You actually clarify what I meant by in the UK, we have our local, what's it called, local councils, regional areas whereby they deal with the MPs. And through that, you have funding for education and all other sectors of our community. Thank you so much. Dr. Conteh, what would you like to add, please?
Well, thank you again. Honorable Touma Njie and the panelists. When it comes to litigation, I want to also add my name to it. I will be part of it to support. I've heard you all talk about expenditure. But revenue enhancement is very critical. Under Sadada's government, the Gambia Income Tax Department was structured to a point where we had segregation of duties. The GRA, I think we need to restructure it. The GRA in the Gambia, I would like for you all to know that they authorize, they collect, and they record. The GRA in the Gambia even has a bank. They have a bank in the GRA building. The Gambia revenue is sent to where? To private banks. And we don't know even whether the Director General of GRA is a signatory to the GRA account. So if we don't have segregation of duties, I always used to say, and I will keep on saying, that the Gambia income tax is almost like football. You have your west wing, you got your center and your right wing. So for instance, if a taxpayer owes maybe $1,000, that's a possibility that the taxpayer may only pay $30. And it's possible that the person who is actually a GRA employee may consume $30. So the other $30 is going to go to where? To the government of the Gambia. And if you don't believe me, do a research on any of the GRA employees, and you will notice that they are living beyond the means of their own support. So this is one area that we need to talk critically, and I think Parliament should try to say that we need to restructure the Gambia Revenue Authority by ensuring that if Gambians are assessed tax, they have to pay directly to the Treasury. That has to be done. So the president talked about the Njie Hakalan Road, $500 million. And the Kiang rectification, I think, is 1.3 billion. What I don't understand here, I want to go back to Banjul. Do we know how many tons of goods we import to the Gambia? If we can even say for every ton that we import, that is imported to the Gambia, we can have $2 for education in Banjul or for road development. Maybe that can take care of the road development in the Gambia. It is only in the Gambia where we go and borrow money to build capital assets, build roads, but then we don't even know how we're going to be able to pay the interest and the principal. So, for instance, Njie Hakalan Road, I made a proposal to say that, well, if the Njie Hakalan Road is there and the government is going to borrow $500 million to build that road, how are we going to pay the interest and the principal? Well, that's a suggestion here. If you are a non-Gambian, you're coming into the Gambia from Karang, I think you should be able to pay $10 to go into the road development in Njie. And if you are boarding, if you are going to take the ferry to Banjul, you should pay at least $2. And likewise, if anyone is boarding a ferry from Banjul to Bara, you should pay at least a user fee of $2 that can go into Banjul's road development. And then we look at Kiang. I ask this question. So they're gonna. I'm totally for. I'm just happy that they have the airport. They have the electricity in Kiang. But $1.3 billion is that they borrowed from the Bank of India. No, the government said from the government of India. That's not true. The Bank of India. The question I'm asking is, do we know the interest rate? Do we know the life of the loan? And how are they going to be able to pay that? So that's what I don't understand. So we come down to our area in Combo, in Combo, particularly Combo North, the airport. Well, anyone who is coming from the airport and you are coming into the Gambia, can you not even pay at least $5 or £5 sterling, €5 to the development of Combo North? The question I'm also asking is that all the hotels that we have in the Gambia, if you go in there, are they not going to charge you maybe $2? This is how development takes effect, even here in the United States. Any road building that they have, if it is encumbered by loan, user fees pay for it. And you all know that even if you go out there to get gas, you may even pay maybe 2 cents or 3 cents per gallon of gas that you put in your vehicle. So, Honorable Touma Njie, next Parliament, I would like for us to talk about these important issues. And if you need for us to help you, because I talked to a parliamentarian, say, oh, we don't have lawyers. I say, we have only one parliamentarian who's a lawyer. I say, but Parliament should hire lawyers to draft the bills for you. So these are the shortcomings, even in the United States Senate or the House of Representatives. They have a lot of lawyers who work for Congress people, who work for senators. So these are things that we can do. I, for one, do not believe that we should mortgage the future of the Gambia, whereby 42 to 46% of our revenue is enhanced through grants. And then again, I repeat myself again. Grant money is not legally binding, so therefore it's not measurable, and therefore it cannot be available. But for the future that we're going to do, Honorable, I would like for you to help us to look at the structure of the Gambia Revenue Authority. There is no way that the Director General of the Gambia Revenue Authority can even have access to proceeds or money that belongs to the Gambian people. And the Gambia Revenue Authority, the structure of the Gambia Revenue Authority should be the way it used to be on the SADA order. If you owe tax, you go pay to the treasury. There should not be any way whatsoever for you to have a bank at the Gambia Revenue Authority. And what I don't understand, 99% of the banks are owned by what? Nigerians. So we Gambians, we pay our taxes. The money goes where to? To these private banks in the Gambia. And Gambians go out there, they cannot even take a loan. So this is something that we should talk about, but again, we can talk about expenditure, but if you don't have way to enhance your revenue, there is no way you can. I like for us to have Gambian millionaires. What is the purpose of decentralized services? Can someone tell me that? Why should we have more than $2 billion is going into centralized services when your health? And Honorable Touma, you said something which caught my eye. You said that the ECOWAS member countries are required to have what? Is it 15% of their budget on health? Is that correct?
No. What I'm saying
What's the percentage? What is the percentage?
A protocol 15% should go to health. That is a protocol that is signed for developing countries. It's for health. There's a percentage also for agriculture, but the percentage is to develop the sector. We only have, I think, much less than that. I think for health, 7.2%, 7.2%, and even that 7.2%, part of it is for recurrent, and for the allocated, for the specified percentage, it should go into development. And it is envisaged that if you do that yearly, eventually your health sector will be developed. But we are not adhering to that. But we can do that when it comes to traveling, when it comes to do that. And it's really appalling, because if you follow the debate last week, when it was mentioned that a certain percentage of 7 million was being taken from the hospitals to the central ministry, it's really sad, because the state of our hospitals is quite appalling already. And for you to take that amount and move it to the central ministry as benefits for specialists that was moved from the hospital to the central ministry is a cause for concern, because whatever specialist was moved from the hospital to the central ministry and other expertise is expected to replace that person. And without that type of benefit, where are we going to get those experts? They are more needed. I can't say they are not needed at the ministry, but at the ministry, I would think we need administrators. And at the hospital, we need those experts. Because if I am sick, I am not taken to the ministry, I am taken to the hospital. And I think that is where we need those experts, surgeons, we need them in the hospital. The reason we are having all those casualties in the hospital is because we don't have the right people there. And that is a cause for concern. And that was why I was against removing 7-point-something million from the central hospital, transferring to the ministry, because a particular experts were moved from the hospital to the ministry. It doesn't make sense to me, and I don't think it will ever make sense. Maybe I'm the crazy person, but it just doesn't make sense.
Thank you so much.
But again, excuse me.
So,
I want you to help me. I want you to help me with this GRA stuff. On the side, that the way we had it structured.
So, Dr. Conteh, sorry, we're running out of time now. We actually over 30 minutes.
Sorry.
We watched by 30 minutes. So, if we can just do closing statements. I will start with Mr. Sambou, please.
Oh yeah, yes. So yeah, just like I always say, these types of discussions are really important for the growth and the health of our democracy. We may not always agree, but once we come together and have a discussion, I'm sure we can always learn from each other. Like I always said, I don't think, personally, I don't claim to be an expert on anything. I'm just somebody who likes commenting on everything to do with governance and politics. And every citizen should should have that that mindset as well, because otherwise, if all of us keep quiet and nobody speaks, then nothing happens at all. So just to emphasize the point that that Honorable Touma Njie raised, if at all we can agree on this forum that something needs to happen for us to ensure that the indiscipline, well, to be specific, the 54 million is budget line is removed from the budget or allocated to another public priority, then I am all in for us to start a petition and maybe take it maybe take it further from there. So apart from that, really, all I would say is thank you to my fellow panelists, especially Honorable Touma Njie. Definitely, it was a last-minute notification, and to be honest, I and Dave were not expecting you to say yes.
I am
yes, but definitely, I have to say we are so grateful to have you, and all I would say is I hope your constituents are not listening. All I would say is Honorable Salah has already announced that he's not going to contest the next elections for National Assembly. So all I would say is if you feel able to, we can have you as a candidate, and we'll make sure you are elected for Serekunda Central to replace Honorable Salah. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you. We're gonna.
Mr. Sambou, I am a Wabanyu. If
No,
you
we're gonna
can
end
appeal
with
for the
200.
Wabanyu to re-elect me, I'll be happy. But I am a Wabanyu.
No, she will be by yourself.
Anyway,
I am just saying that option is available.
Yes. Yeah, Dr. Njie, if you would like to help with your closing statements, please.
Sure. Yeah, thanks to Dave, thanks for having me as usual. Honorable Njie, thanks for chiming in and answering our questions and engaging us. This is good. This is healthy. This is really good for democracy, where the people that are representing us are actually, my family is from Banjul South too. My paternal family is definitely Banjul South as they come. But and Dr. Conteh, nice to finally meet you. But I just wanted to. We have discussed the budget ad nauseum, but I think it's also important to understand how poor the Gambia is and how small our budget is, right? So in 2017, the operating budget was about $300 million. Mm-hmm. That summer, Paris Saint-Germain bought Neymar for $258 million.
Yes.
My school, Virginia Tech, the operating budget for that year was $1.5 billion. This is a country of 2 million people, where the budget in 2017, and again, like I explained, I took a deeper dive into the 2017 budget than I did this year because I've been really busy. But if you look at that, you realize that this is a really, really, really poor country.
Yeah.
And the priorities, where our priorities are as a country, should scare everybody. Because if you look at this budget and you look at where the executive's priorities are, you realize that we're in this for the long haul. Because a country as the Gambia, the problem we have is that we consume everything and we don't produce much. We actually don't. So some of the ways to fix this would be to invest in things that are actually going to broaden the tax base, right? Like agriculture, trade, and those kind of stuff. Right? We should be investing in things of the future and the present, obviously, and of course the future. Invest in education because these kids are the ones who are going to invent the future for the Gambia. We are not. We are failing every single one of them. So the question is this the best we've got in Gambia? I do not know. Yeah. But one thing I do know is that this is the best we've put forward, and we can do definitely better than this.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Njie. Dr. Conteh, if we can have closing statements from you, please.
Well, thank you, Dr. Njie, again for your remarks. And so now I remember you over at Bluefield State College, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
This is a very small one. I also want to thank Honorable Touma Njie and, of course, our dear friend Mr. Sambou and Mr. Mane. Well, it is the Gambia is our country, regardless of how long we live here. We should try to entice, engage our politicians to be able to help them, because I also watch Parliament and I'm at the National Assembly, and I'm very, very even disappointed. Even the documentation that they have, sometimes they have grammatical errors, and even the speeches. But that is on them. But at least we have one person here who came in to engage us. So, but again, what I would like to emphasize again in my closing remarks is for Honorable Touma Njie to consider about the restructuring of the Revenue Authority. I still believe that we don't have segregation of duties, and as a result, most of the tax agents are living beyond the means of their own support. I also would like to engage again you that when it comes to road development, we should have user fees. And for the port of Banjul, any ton that we bring in, even if it's going to be $2, is to go into the development of Banjul. And likewise, the airport in Yondum, anyone coming in there, if you can pay to go to the development of Combo North, and also pay user fees on other stuff. But we cannot continue as a country to rely on Western countries for our sustainability. I am going to end by telling you that in the Gambia, we rely on 42% of our budget appropriation from grants. And the central bank governor just stated, that the domestic debt has increased. So which means that before it was 67 billion, together with the international debt, external debt. So the Gambia is a country where we are going totally in debt. I, for one, do not believe in deficit spending. I think we should have fiscal responsibility. But again, I want to thank you for the engagement. And I think even though we may disagree politically, but when it comes to nation building, I think we also come together to uplift our people. We are fortunate to be here, particularly for some of us who are in diaspora. And for a person like Honorable Touma Njie, who also is in the Gambia, and practically maybe only 2 voices or 3 voices who are talking about voice of reasoning, which we don't have a lot in Parliament. I think our coming together is good for our country, and I hope we can have more of this. And I want to thank you again for the engagement.
All right, thank you so much. Honorable, we were very honored, and we indeed very, very privileged to have you here today. Like Mr. Sambou said, we were actually not too sure if you will turn up. I'm pleased to say that you've restored my faith in some Gambian politicians. I'm hoping that lots of them will emulate you. But once again, the floor is yours if you would like to make your closing statements, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mane and Mr. Sambou. Thank you for engaging me, inviting me to this forum. And I'm really grateful meeting Dr. Sulayman Njie and formerly Professor Conteh. I follow you, and you really make interesting and really fruitful contributions. And I pray that my government takes heed. I always call it my government because I feel that it is our government. That's why I take responsibility. If they succeed, we succeed. If they fail, we fail. And that is why I always say my. And it is something that we must take up. And what is that? To ensure that we leave a good legacy. I always look back. Everywhere I go, people say good things about your parents. But then I ask myself, what would they say if I am no more? That is the most important thing, and that is what we should think of. What are they going to tell our children someday when we are no more? We are proud of our parents, but we should also make our children proud. And I think that is something that we must do. That is why whatever one does, they should think of when they are no more. I read an article about an inventor. I think a brother of his died, and they thought it was him, and all bad things were written. And then when he saw it, he said, "Is that actually me?" And then he actually changed because he used to create some weapons of mass destruction. And then he went and created medicine that cures people. And I said, oh, I don't want to be remembered like that. And as a parliamentarian, I wasn't known 3 years ago. Nobody knew me. I mean, nobody spoke about me. Nobody talked about me. But all of a sudden, as a parliamentarian, they started talking about me. And in 10 years' time, or whenever I'm no more, what would I want my children to hear about me? I wouldn't want them hearing that I took $1 million to build a home that they would live in. No. I want them to know that I built a hospital, to say that I contributed to a building of a school, not a home that they are going to live. I want them to build their own home or build a home for me eventually by the education that I helped create. I think that is how I want to be remembered. And thank you very much for having me. And hopefully we would have more of these conversations. And hopefully we will work on how to engage people, not only my electorate, but being a few of female MPs, I feel that I represent all women in the country. And the reason I always talk about how it's not nice hearing women dying of childbirth when some of us have the privilege to give birth somewhere else. That is the reason why we must fight for it. The privileges we have are the same privileges that we should try and give everybody. And I think that is the reason why some of us are in politics, not to enrich ourselves. Thank you.
Yes, one of the dying breeds in our Gambian politics. We're very, very happy to have you here, like I said. To our viewers, all I could say, wow, we are impressed. Like I said, Pa Louis said, let's contact Touma Njie. I'm like, oh, I don't know her. To be honest, Pa Louis said, I've had some dealings with her. Yeah, I am just blown away, really. Thank you so much. To our viewers, we thank you for staying with us. We have some technical difficulties today, particularly in my household today. I don't know what happened. Must be some gremlins. But yeah, I had to actually reboot my router physically. But there you go. Thank you for watching us, for viewing us, for commenting. I mean, you will try to make this as interactive as possible. Today was a little bit impossible because we just couldn't. But we thank you, and hopefully we'll invite Honorable Touma Njie once again, and maybe she could also encourage other members of the National Assembly to come and engage with us, people in the diaspora. Because I know there's a saying in the Gambia, or diaspora, young complain, great complain. But I'm telling you, if we don't complain, you're not even going to make this small progress that we're making, and that is not patronizing them. It's because we've lived somewhere else, and we know how things run. It's not perfect, but at least they got the fundamentals right. So that's where we also crawling towards that fundamental. And I think if we can get there, Gambia should be, I think we have a promising future. Thank you very much, everybody. We're very honored and privileged to have you all here, especially Honorable Fatoumata Touma Njie. That's my mom's Touma. I'll call you mommy from now on. Thank you so much. You make me very proud. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Yeah, Paului. Hey. Okay.
Ethnic Isles, ethnicisles.com. Koko Ethnic Isles, di gan bu bees. Ethnic Isles, di website bu bees. Di boutique si biir internet. Ku leen ko isil di kali jabang jëmale ko si askani ak mbokki Sénégambia ak tundu Africa. Ethnic Isles amal na leen bépp xeeti bagage yu demee ni ki si yére ak piisu rafet, bagage si lekk yu amul façon. boole si nag Ethnic Isles na fàttewoon suñu jigéen ñi amal na ay takaayu rafet yoo xam ne bari qualité la def. Ethnic Isles di leen yëgal ne am nañ delivery service sa Gambia, di leen yóbbu seen bagage ba sa bunti kër ñu koy woyee door to door service si anam bu wóor te doo si sonn waaw kookoy Ethnic Isles ba tey Ethnic Isles nee na pour jokkoo ak ñoom dem leen si www.ethnicisles.com. Ethnic Isles bu ngeen bëggee xam lu wóor jokkoo leen ak suñu liggéeykat yu xarañee ñu tontu leen si nu mu gën a gaawee. Ethnic Isles. Ethnic Isles, ethnicisles.com. Ethnic Isles is a newly launched online store brought to you by Kadijaba to the Senegambian African community. Ethnic Isles will sell all your ethnic products at a reasonable price, just under one click. Visit our friendly online site where you can buy products from clothing, groceries, fashion accessories, African and Caribbean food, all under one roof. Ethnic Isles is also providing a door-to-door delivery service to your families in the Gambia. Tell your friends and families back home, Ethnic Isles is here for easy and hassle-free shopping on www.ethnicisles.com. Any information, contact our friendly admin. We're here to help. Ethnic Isles is our own.
Empire Radio 1.
Everyone has a purpose, and it is this purpose you pursue that defines you. The reason why we, Dalaba Ecology, located on the Gunjur-Brikama Highway, is here is to create peaceful environment and conducive atmosphere for our esteemed guests, both nationals and those who choose the Gambia as their final destination. Our accommodations are modern standards, well-spaced and well-ventilated seminar and conference rooms. There is no other excellent venue for your birthdays and wedding programs than Dalaba Eco Lodge. So come and experience our affordable luxuries in sustainable environment. Our rooms are inside our gardens filled with sweet-smelling flowers and cozy feelings of nature. Visits to the Gunjut Sandy Beach with our wonderful transport services at no cost is all the time available. To enchant your stay furthermore, at Dalaba Eco Lodge, we create the following: bird watching, bike rentals for visiting local markets, and many other places of interest, city tours and boat trips, etc. For more details, you can take the digits 00220 360 7043. Email dalabaecolodge78@gmail.com. Facebook Dalaba Eco Lodge Gambia. Book your places now to experience memorable adventures one cannot afford to miss.